January 9, 1945 at 3:47 a.m. Hatton, France. The ground beneath Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo was frozen solid and covered with ice, but he remained motionless. Through the broken window frame of what had once been a local bakery, he observed dark figures advancing through the pre-dawn darkness. These shapes wore coal scuttle helmets and carried Schmisser submachine guns. His fingers, numb from holding onto the wooden stock of his 30-caliber machine gun for over 16 hours, instinctively moved towards the trigger. In his mind, the words he would later write to his sister in Decker, Illinois, echoed back to him. They continued their relentless advance, wave after wave. I lost count after the 40th soldier fell. These shadows transformed into Wehrmachted troops, part of the reconnaissance units from the 21st Panzer Division and the 25th Panzer Grenadier Division, elite formations that had fought from North Africa to Normandy. They were heading straight for the command post of the 1st Battalion of the 242nd Infantry Regiment, completely unaware that a single American sergeant stood between them and their objective. Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo, who refused to retreat despite his thick glasses and poor eyesight that almost prevented him from joining combat in the first place. Over the next 2 days, he would perform one of the most remarkable defensive actions in modern warfare history, holding off elements of 2 German divisions, killing at least 40 enemy soldiers, wounding many others, and single-handedly preventing a critical breach in the Allied line during Operation Nordwind, the last major offensive on the Western Front. This saga began 5 days earlier, on January 4, 1945, when German forces initiated Operation Nordwind, their final desperate attempt to retake Alsace and split the Allied lines while American troops were engaged in the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler himself had ordered this assault, hoping that a decisive victory in Alsace could shift the course of the war. The small Alsatian town of Hatton was situated directly along the path of the German advance. Its strategic significance lay not in its size but in its location. Whoever controlled Hatton controlled the network of roads leading towards Strasbourg. It was crucial for the Americans to hold it or risk the collapse of their entire defensive line. Among those defending the town was Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo, a 28-year-old son of Italian immigrants who grew up during the Great Depression in Decker, Illinois. His father, Rocco, had been a coal miner. Mary, Vito's mother, passed away when he was still young, leaving him and his 7 siblings to live in an orphanage. Prior to the outbreak of war, Bertoldo had worked as both a coal miner and truck driver. Upon the attack on Pearl Harbor, Bertoldo eagerly tried to enlist but was rejected with a 4F classification due to his subpar eyesight. The examining physician at the induction center in Chicago delivered his verdict straightforwardly. "Son, your vision is so poor that you can barely see past your nose without your glasses. You are unsuitable for combat." However, Bertoldo refused to accept this assessment and enlisted in August 1942, initially accepting a role as a military cook while persistently requesting reassignment to a combat unit. With the army desperately needing infantry replacements, following the heavy losses at D-Day and subsequent operations, they began reassessing their 4F classifications. Bertoldo was among the first to be reconsidered and assigned to Company A of the 2042nd Infantry Regiment within the renowned Rainbow Division, which had made a name for itself in World War I. By January 1945, after battling through France since October 1944, Bertoldo had demonstrated that poor eyesight did not hinder his courage. He had risen to the rank of Master Sergeant and earned recognition as someone who never retreated, never complained, and always stayed behind with wounded comrades. On the morning of January 9th, Hatton's situation was rapidly deteriorating. German artillery had bombarded the town for 2 days, reducing most structures to rubble. The battalion command post, originally set up in a sturdy stone building that once served as the town hall, prepared to relocate due to advancing enemy forces. Lieutenant Colonel Guy O. Kurtz, commanding the 1st Battalion, made the tough decision to evacuate under cover of darkness. When volunteers were sought for covering fire during this withdrawal, Bertoldo responded simply, "I'll do it. as the rest of the battalion began their evacuation at 2200 hours on January 8th. Bertoldo positioned himself in the command post and prepared his 30 caliber Browning machine gun to cover the main approach, a narrow street leading directly to the town square. Equipped with its water, cool jacket and tripod mount, the Browning machine gun could deliver between 450 and 600 rounds per minute. However, ammunition would be restricted to what could be scavenged from abandoned enemy positions. At precisely 03:47 on January 9th, a German patrol emerged. 6 cautious soldiers moved through the debris-strewn streets. Bertoldo allowed them to get within 30 yards before initiating fire with his Browning. The brief burst lasted 3 seconds, causing all 6 Germans to fall. Minutes later, intense return fire erupted from various weapons, including machine guns, rifles, and mortars targeting Bertoldo's position. According to the official Medal of Honor citation, Bertoldo made a daring decision that defied conventional military logic. He carried his machine gun out into the street and set it up in full view of the enemy. The citation states that despite being completely exposed and illuminated by burning buildings, Bertoldo remained at this position for nearly 12 hours, repelling wave after wave of attacks. Official records confirm that Bertoldo maintains extraordinary defensive stance from 0400 to 600 on January 9th, enduring relentless enemy fire. At 16:30, as daylight began to fade and German casualties increased, enemy armor arrived, with a tank moving into position to target Bertoldo's location. The Medal of Honor citation details what followed. A shell knocked him across the room, but he returned to his weapon immediately. When 2 personnel carriers accompanied by a tank approached his position, Bertoldo waited until troops dismounted before engaging them from a window with his machine gun, eliminating more than half of the advancing force. Moving his Browning back inside the command post, Bertoldo secured it on a table and continued firing through a window. As the next wave of German infantry advanced behind the tank, he held fire until they were fully exposed before unleashing a barrage from his weapon. The tank commander, exasperated by the persistent resistance from one lone defender, instructed the tank to close into point-blank range. At a mere 75 yards, as verified by military reports, the tank unleashed its firepower directly at the command center. The ensuing explosion obliterated the machine gun and sent Bertoldo flying across the room. Dazed and injured from numerous shrapnel wounds, he discovered a stash of white phosphorus grenades left behind during the retreat. When the next German squad neared the building, confident that the tank had neutralized all opposition, Bertoldo was prepared. The Medal of Honor citation states that despite the intense barrage, he remained at his post and lobbed white phosphorus grenades into the advancing enemy troops until they retreated. A second tank, less than 50 yards away as documented in the official citation, fired on his position once more, destroying the machine gun and flinging him across the room again. Undeterred, Bertoldo returned to combat armed with a rifle, covering the withdrawal of his comrades when the post was ultimately abandoned. By January 10th morning, Bertoldo had been awake for days without proper sleep or nourishment. His body bore multiple wounds from shrapnel and explosions, and his glasses were held together by wire. At 0:15 hours on January 10th, the Germans launched another massive assault. The preparatory bombardment was devastating, causing extensive damage to the command post. Walls collapsed, parts of the roof fell in, and fires erupted throughout multiple rooms. According to official military records and his Medal of Honor citation, Bertoldo continued to fight back with an M1 Garand rifle, ammunition scavenged from fallen soldiers during lulls in the battle. For the next 12 hours, Bertoldo became a shadow figure, appearing at windows, firing off several rounds before vanishing and reappearing elsewhere. By noon on January 10th, the original command post was no longer defensible as German forces had pushed past his position and were threatening to overrun the battalion's alternate command post situated in a large building 400 yards to the rear. Military records and his Medal of Honor citation reveal that Bertoldo made an extraordinary decision to move to the alternate command post to continue defending against the enemy advance. According to the citation, Sergeant Bertoldo exhibited extraordinary bravery while defending 2 command posts against a formidable attack by infantry and armored units that overwhelmed the battalion's primary defensive line. At one of these positions, he discovered an abandoned 30 caliber machine gun that had been damaged in battle. Working under heavy fire, he performed emergency repairs to restore it to serviceability. When German forces launched what they perceived as their decisive assault, Bertoldo was prepared. The narrow street leading to the command post turned into a deadly battlefield. For 20 minutes straight, Bertoldo kept up relentless firing until the enemy attack was repelled. His Medal of Honor citation affirms that his actions resulted in at least 40 German soldiers being killed and numerous others wounded. By January 10th at midnight, Bertoldo had been engaged continuously for over 48 hours without rest or relief. The official citation notes, through sheer determination, Sergeant Bertoldo withstood the onslaught of numerically superior forces for more than 2 days, narrowly escaping death multiple times. At 2:00 a.m. on January 11th, reinforcements from the 14th Armored Division arrived at Hatton, trapping German troops between them and the steadfast defenders of the town. The Germans began to retreat. When relief forces reached the alternate command post, they found Bertoldo still manning his position, barely conscious, covered in blood and powder burns, but refusing to leave until properly relieved. As dawn broke on January 11th, officers from division headquarters arrived at the front lines to verify the incredible reports coming in. The official records confirmed that Bertoldo had inflicted significant casualties, with at least 40 German soldiers killed and many more wounded. The 1st Battalion of the 24th Tuned Infantry started the battle with 33 officers and 748 enlisted men. By its conclusion, only 11 officers and 253 enlisted men remained combat effective. Colonel Hans von Luck, commander of the 125th Regiment of the 21st Panzer Division at Hatton, later wrote in his memoirs about the fierce resistance encountered there, describing it as one of the most intense and costly battles fought on the Western Front. Bertoldo was evacuated to the 45th Field Hospital, where doctors treated him for multiple shrapnel wounds, burns, and contusions from explosions. Over the course of his 2-day ordeal, he had lost a significant amount of weight. Bertoldo suffered severe burns to his hands after touching an overheated machine gun barrel. During his recovery period, he was visited by fellow soldiers eager to meet the individual who had single-handedly halted a German offensive. He consistently played down his achievements, maintaining that he merely fulfilled his duty. On December 18, 1945, at a White House ceremony, President Harry S. Truman awarded Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo with the Medal of Honor. The event also recognized 5 other recipients and included General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who specifically requested to meet Sergeant Bertoldo, whose actions had become legendary across the European theater. During the ceremony, President Truman praised Bertoldo by saying, "You embody the finest qualities of America. Undaunted resolve in the face of overwhelming odds." The official Medal of Honor citation published in War Department General Orders No. 5 on January 10th, 1946, stated that he fought with remarkable bravery and courage while defending 2 command posts against powerful infantry and armored forces that had overrun his battalion's main line of resistance. For over 48 hours without rest or respite, Bertoldo endured attacks from vastly superior forces, narrowly escaping death multiple times, and eliminating at least 40 enemy soldiers while wounding many others. Following his discharge in February 1946, Bertoldo was appointed by President Truman as a Veterans Administration representative. He began his work in Chicago for 1 year, assisting returning veterans with navigating the complexities of securing their benefits. In 1947, he transferred to the San Francisco VA office, where he continued this vital service until 1958. Known for his expertise, Bertoldo specialized in aiding disabled veterans and those grappling with combat-related trauma. His own wartime experiences gave him a unique understanding of their struggles. He was renowned for his relentless advocacy on behalf of veterans' benefits, demonstrating the same tenacity he had shown during the battle at Hatton. In 1958, Bertoldo left the VA and started a landscaping business in Marana County, California. The success of this venture stemmed from the same unwavering determination that characterized his military service. He gained recognition for tackling projects that others deemed impossible, such as turning rugged terrain into lush gardens where there had been none before. His dedication to his work was legendary. He often clocked in 12-hour shifts under the scorching California sun without a complaint. The demanding nature of his job seemed to give him a sense of purpose and solace following the hardships of war. In 1952, Bertoldo married Patricia, making it his second union after his first marriage dissolved in 1950. This time around, he found stability and companionship with Patricia. Their son, David Veto Bertoldo, was born in 1946 and went on to serve in the United States Marine Corps during the Vietnam War, earning a Bronze Star Medal. David remembered his father as someone who seldom spoke about war experiences, but whose service was revered among veterans. The elder Bertoldo kept his Medal of Honor inside a cigar box tucked away in his dresser. He never displayed it prominently, yet every veteran in California knew who Veto Bertoldo was. His grandson, David Christopher Bertoldo, followed in his footsteps by serving in the United States Army during the Gulf War, ensuring that 3 generations of the Bertoldo family had answered their country's call to duty. In early 1966, Bertoldo received a diagnosis of advanced lung cancer, but faced this challenge with his usual determination. He meticulously researched treatment options and kept up with a strict regimen of medical appointments. Despite his efforts, he could not overcome the disease. On July 23, 1966, Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo passed away at the VA hospital in Martinez, California, at the age of 49. He was laid to rest with full military honors at Golden Gate National Cemetery in San Bruno, Section C, grave number 52A. The funeral drew over 500 attendees, including veterans, family members, friends, and military personnel. The 42nd Infantry Division dispatched an honor guard contingent. The eulogy highlighted both Veto Bertoldo's bravery at Hatton and his dedication to veterans following the war. His former battalion commander, Colonel Guy O. Kurtz, remarked, "Veto Bertoldo demonstrated that a single individual can have a profound impact. At Hatton, when rational thought advised retreat and survival, instinct urged flight, and despite being overwhelmed by enemy forces, Veto Bertoldo refused to back down. He held his ground not for accolades or recognition, but because he was needed by his fellow soldiers." Military historians have meticulously examined the Battle of Hatton, focusing particularly on Bertoldo's pivotal role. Operation Nordwind's failure can partly be attributed to the steadfast defense of positions such as Hatton. The 21st Panzer and 25th Panzer Grenadier Divisions sustained heavy losses at Hatton from which they never fully recovered their combat effectiveness. Bertoldo's tactics, including his use of mobility within a static position, strict fire control measures, and his ability to maintain combat readiness despite injuries and fatigue, have been studied as exemplary lessons in defensive warfare by the U.S. Army. The official history of the European theater notes that the defense of Hatton epitomized the finest attributes of American infantry. Soldiers like Master Sergeant Bertoldo showcased how determined defenders entrenched in advantageous positions could thwart even elite enemy units. In 2018, Netflix featured his story in the documentary series Medal of Honor, introducing a new generation to his heroism. The episode utilized military records, expert analysis, and dramatization to recount the critical events over those fateful 48 hours at Hatton. Lieutenant Colonel Flynn, operations officer for the current 42nd Infantry Division, appeared in the documentary stating, "What Bertoldo accomplished transcends time. His actions remind us that the true strength of our military lies not in technology or numbers, but in individual soldiers who refuse to yield when all odds suggest they should." The documentary also revealed details from recently declassified Afghan reports showing the substantial casualties inflicted by Bertoldo on attacking German units, conferred units, which equated to losses typically associated with an entire platoon's resistance rather than a lone soldier, Rebuilt after the war, Hatton remains deeply committed to honoring Bertoldo's memory. On January 9, 1995, a memorial was unveiled at the precise spot where he displayed extraordinary bravery during the battle's 50th anniversary. The plaque, inscribed in both French and English, states Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo of the United States Army stood alone against formidable odds, demonstrating that courage has no bounds. Each year on this day, residents pay tribute to Bertoldo through a commemorative ceremony attended by veterans, historians, and community members. The 75th anniversary in 2020 attracted participants from across Europe and America. The U.S. Army's 47th Infantry Division sponsors an annual Bertoldo Award recognizing the soldier who best embodies initiative and courage under challenging circumstances. This accolade serves as a testament to Bertoldo's legacy, highlighting that individual bravery can still influence modern warfare significantly. Military records officially document Bertoldo's stand at Hatton for 48 hours of continuous combat, during which he went without sleep for over 50 hours while enduring limited provisions of food and water. He faced enemy forces from the 21st Panzer Division and elements of the 25th Panzer Grenadier Division, including multiple infantry companies supported by tanks and armored vehicles. According to the Medal of Honor citation, Bertoldo inflicted at least 40 confirmed kills on the enemy, with many more wounded whose exact numbers remain unknown. He successfully repelled numerous attacks despite sustaining several shrapnel wounds and burns from his hot machine gun barrel. Injured by direct tank fire, resulting in a Purple Heart Award, his strategic contributions were crucial in preventing a breakthrough along his battalion's defensive line and contributed to the failure of Operation Nordwind, thereby saving numerous American lives. Today, Veto Bertoldo's legacy continues in various forms. The Bertoldo Foundation, founded by his family in 2000, offers scholarships to children of veterans and supports PTSD research. To date, this foundation has assisted over 300 students with college tuition and funded significant studies on combat-related trauma. At Fort Benning's Infantry School, the Bertoldo training scenario is used to challenge officer candidates by examining his defensive tactics, focusing on position selection, fire discipline, and sustaining 战斗力在极端压力下的有效性。法国哈顿博物馆的永久展览也展示了贝尔多的部分，每年吸引数千名游客参观。该展览通过地图、照片和证词生动再现了战斗场景。尽管不如他的战场服务那样广为人知，被特洛战后的退役军人工作同样重要。从1947年到1958年，他帮助成千上万的退伍军人获取福利，并特别有效地为患有与战争相关的残疾及心理健康问题的老兵争取权益。就金山联邦机构的前同事回忆起，他的不懈努力，无论面对何种障碍都不会轻易放弃。他对官僚体系了如指掌，深知战争给人带来的无形创伤。1962年被特洛在国会作证，强调需要为战斗老兵提供更好的心理健康服务。尽管当时还没有 PTSD 这一术语，但他深刻理解战争的隐形伤痕。His testimony played a crucial role in enhancing mental health services for veterans at VA hospitals, benefiting countless individuals over the years. The Battle of Hatton is extensively documented in German military literature. Colonel Hans von Luck's memoir, titled Panzer's Command, highlights the intense fighting and heavy casualties his regiment experienced during this conflict. Von Luck stated, "The American defense was remarkable. Isolated strongpoints that should have been overrun quickly held out for hours or even days." French historians have also delved deeply into the battle's details. The town of Hatton suffered significant damage from the fighting, resulting in both civilian casualties and extensive property destruction. However, the French people have consistently honored the American defenders who averted an even greater disaster. Dr. Jean-Paul Beleliard, a noted French military historian, observed, "The defense of Hatton safeguarded not only strategic military positions but also countless French civilians from being caught up in a more devastating conflict had the Germans succeeded in breaking through. Soldiers like Sergeant Bertoldo sacrificed their lives for the freedom of France." The military academy conducts global studies on the Battle of Hatton as an exemplar of defensive warfare, illustrating several key principles: the significance of individual initiative in defensive operations, the psychological impact of steadfast resistance on attacking forces, the effectiveness of mobility within a defensive position, and the critical importance of selecting advantageous positions with optimal fields of fire. West Point incorporates Bertoldo's actions into its curriculum for Medal of Honor studies, teaching cadets about personal bravery and tactical decision-making under extreme conditions. Similar programs are in place at the Naval Academy and Air Force Academy. International military schools also study this battle. The British Royal Military Academy Sandhurst includes it as part of their analysis on defensive operations, while the German Bundeswehr Officer School examines it within the context of Operation Nordwind's failure. Although Beer survived Hatton, the psychological toll lingered with him. His second wife, Patricia, later disclosed that he endured nightmares and symptoms now recognized as PTSD. He would wake up disoriented, sometimes believing he was still amidst combat. Despite these challenges, Bertoldo maintained his dignity and continued to serve others. He channeled his experiences into aiding fellow veterans, deeply understanding their struggles because of his own lived experience. His work at the VA went beyond being just a job. It was an extension of his service to his comrades. Friends and family recalled him as someone who seldom complained about his personal issues, but fiercely advocated for others. This selflessness, evident during Hatton, persisted throughout his life. He transformed his trauma into purpose and turned his pain into compassion for other veterans. The current infantry field manual of the U.S. Army incorporates lessons from actions like Bertoldo's stand. Modern defensive doctrine underscores the importance of fortified positions with multiple firing points, individual weapon proficiency and maintenance skills, and mental resilience training to address the psychological impact of determined resistance. Special Forces units analyze historical examples of single soldiers holding ground against overwhelming odds. Bertoldo's ability to remain effective for 48 hours under extreme stress is studied to understand human performance limits. Modern training programs aim to foster the same level of mental toughness Bertoldo exhibited. While technology has revolutionized warfare, the enduring significance of individual courage and determination remains unchanged. At the 75th anniversary commemoration in 2020, Major General Thomas Vandal, representing the 47th Infantry Division, delivered a speech that highlighted Bertoldo's importance. Master Sergeant Bertoldo exemplifies that heroes are revealed through moments of crisis rather than being inherently born. He started as a cook and went on to become one of the war's most highly decorated soldiers, despite initially being rejected for combat because of severely impaired vision. Yet he managed to hold off 2 elite German divisions. This tale underscores the potential for greatness within ordinary individuals. At the ceremony, Dennis Reinhardt, who is Bertoldo's nephew, shared some family anecdotes and memories. Uncle Veto never considered himself a hero. He simply believed that he had done what was necessary at the time. However, his actions not only saved lives, but also altered the course of history. It fills us with pride to bear his name and uphold his legacy. Each new generation uncovers Bertoldo's story through various mediums such as documentaries, books, and military courses. His example continues to inspire because it embodies timeless values like duty, courage, sacrifice, and perseverance. When young soldiers visit the battlefield in Hatton, they walk on the very ground where Bertoldo fought. They observe the narrow streets and limited fields of fire that made his situation nearly impossible. Comprehending what one soldier accomplished there instills confidence in their own capabilities. Veterans from recent conflicts find inspiration in Bertoldo's story as well. Those who served in Afghanistan and Iraq recognize the type of intense urban combat he experienced, understanding the exhaustion, fear, and determination required to keep fighting despite overwhelming odds. What makes Veto Bertoldo's narrative resonate with people across different generations is its universal appeal. He was neither a professional soldier nor from a military background. In fact, his poor eyesight made him unsuitable for frontline combat. Nonetheless, he transformed into an extraordinary figure when history called upon him. His story teaches us that true heroism lies not in the absence of fear, but in the willingness to act despite it. This is about persevering through fear and uncertainty rather than relying on extraordinary abilities. It's not about seeking fame or recognition. Instead, it involves standing firm even when giving up seems reasonable. The focus lies in safeguarding those who rely on you. Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo's 48-hour defense of Hatton epitomizes one of the most remarkable individual defensive actions in American military history. Official records clearly illustrate his incredible feats. Despite being outnumbered by elements from 2 elite German divisions, he managed to kill at least 40 enemy soldiers and wound numerous others. For over 48 hours, without rest or assistance, Bertoldo held his ground tenaciously. His efforts directly contributed to the failure of Germany's final major offensive on the Western Front. Yet, beyond these impressive statistics, there is a profound truth revealed: individual bravery can still make a significant impact. One person has the power to change outcomes, and unwavering resolve can triumph over daunting odds. His legacy extends far beyond military annals, encompassing the lives he saved, the veterans he aided, and the ongoing inspiration he provides. In an era dominated by advanced weaponry, drone attacks, and cyber warfare, Bertoldo's tale remains pertinent. While technology evolves, the essence of warrior ethos endures. The core challenges faced in combat, fear, fatigue, the moral struggle between self-preservation and duty, remain unchanged. Contemporary military leaders underscore that despite technological advancements, war fundamentally hinges on individual soldiers making tough choices under immense pressure. Master Sergeant Bertoldo sets a standard for such decision-making processes. General Mark Rodriguez, the current leader of the 47th Infantry Division, succinctly captures this essence. Each soldier who wears the uniform should be familiar with Veto Bertoldo's tale. It isn't about expecting everyone to become Medal of Honor winners. Rather, it highlights what can happen when regular individuals refuse to give up. How did one man manage to fend off hundreds of adversaries for 48 hours? Military experts have examined this battle in detail, but some elements remain perplexing. His ability to maintain accuracy despite damaged glasses, his extraordinary physical endurance, and his mental sharpness even under extreme fatigue continue to amaze even with our contemporary understanding of combat performance. Perhaps the explanation lies not in strategy or physiology, but in a simpler concept: true dedication. Veto Bertoldo had made an absolute commitment to hold his ground, making everything else, pain, fear, exhaustion, secondary to that resolve. Beyond those 48 hours of combat, Veto's story includes a childhood shaped by poverty and loss, the determination to serve despite physical limitations, the courage to confront impossible odds, and the dedication to continue supporting veterans after the war. Each aspect sheds light not only on what he did but also on who he was. An ordinary American who answered history's call with exceptional bravery. In essence, Veto Bertoldo's story isn't just about one man's valor at Hatton. It illustrates the potential for heroism in unexpected places and demonstrates how individual determination can shape historical events. It underscores the cost of freedom and those willing to pay that price. Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo believed he was merely fulfilling his duty, but history has rendered a different verdict. During those 48 hours at Hatton, he transcended the role of just another soldier. He embodied the very essence of the front line, the dividing line between triumph and disaster, between progress and resistance. The German troops anticipated encountering standard defensive measures with typical soldiers. What they encountered instead was beyond conventional military reasoning, a man who refused to surrender. When chronicling pivotal moments in history, military historians typically highlight major battles involving large-scale deployments. Yet, history occasionally turns on minuscule pivots. At times, it hinges on a single individual declaring, "not one step further." In January 1945 at Hatton, France, Master Sergeant Veto Bertoldo made such a declaration. For an impossible 48 hours against insurmountable odds, he held the line with unwavering determination. The Germans were astounded by his feat then, and even today, when examining the evidence and contemplating the sheer impossibility of what he accomplished, it is difficult to fathom. However, the proof remains unassailable, the testimony compelling, and the significance undeniable. With just one sergeant, a single machine gun, over 40 Germans killed in the span of 2 days. What should have been an insurmountable task became reality. Whether he was aware of the impossible odds or not, Veto Bertoldo did what had to be done. His actions defined heroism.